Hey guys, nice to be with you again. It's time for another story. It's the middle of May, and most people's minds go to, or thoughts go to graduations. So today's story is going to be about my graduation. I graduated the year that they basically integrated the schools in the state of Mississippi. Everybody thought it was going to be a big to do and that there was going to be a lot of uh, I guess, protest, but we were very proud and pleased with ourselves that we combined the largest Black high school with the largest white high school in our little city, and there were no problems. We basically worked through the process and were pleased that everyone could be together. But it did have one impact on our graduation. The auditorium where we normally held our graduations each year was not large enough to accommodate the class. So basically, for this first year ever that they did, they had the graduation in the football stadium. So we had all been out there practicing and, practicing where they would come out row by row and that you'd walk up and they would call your name out and you'd walk over and you would put one hand out to shake the hand of the head of the Board of Education and you'd put the other hand out this way to take your diploma. Then you would turn and you'd smile for the camera for them to take your official photograph of that prestigious moment. So at our high school, one of the things that they did is that if you graduated with a certain grade point average, a high when it was in a high percentile, that when they called your name, they would say your name and then they would say with distinction. Now, my parents never ever applied any pressure to me. They never stayed on me about getting good grades. They had just instilled in me the desire to please them, of course, and to excel. So I did study and I did get good grades, and it was just something that I wanted to do. But I had never thought about that graduation moment. I never really went to that to think about and to hope for that they would call my name, and after that they would say graduating with distinction. I knew that although my mother had never said anything about it, that she was hoping and looking forward to that moment that maybe they would call my name out with distinction. And we as students did not know who really graduated with distinction until they announced it at the graduation that night. So I'm praying really hard and I'm standing there, they've called my row and I stand up and I'm in line and they're calling the names ahead of me. And the whole time I'm praying, please, dear God, I don't think I've really asked you for much my entire life of 17 years, but could you please grant this wish for me? Could you please answer this prayer and let me graduate with distinction, because I want my mother especially and my father to be so proud. So they get to my name and they say, Catherine Rebecca Selman, with distinction. And my heart just almost exploded. I'm walking on air and I'm thinking, oh, yes, I did it. I did it. So I walk across, I put my hand out to shake the Board of Superintendents, the head of education, his hand, and to grab my diploma and pose for the picture. Well, therein was the problem. As I put my hand out to shake his hand was not there. He was looking through the stack of diplomas to find mine. And I'm standing there with my hands out like this, and I'm waiting for, I have a smile plastered on my face. And I realize that he cannot find my diploma. And I look at him, and under my breath, still smiling like this, I look at him, and then under my breath, I say, would you like me to just wait or going across the stage until you find mine? He said, no. He said, I want you to wait right here. So I put my hands out, and by this time, the entire board is up. They're searching through all of the diplomas to find mine. And I'm standing there, and it was so quiet in that stadium. I mean, a stadium, you could just feel all the pity pouring off of the audience, and nobody was saying anything. Everybody was holding their breath. And I'm about to break into maniacal, hysterical laughter because I'm thinking, this just takes the cake. Here I have worked 17 years to try to get my diploma, and I walked across, I've graduated with distinction, and they cannot find me a diploma. So I realized that I am going to lose it and start laughing. So I finally just turned to my class, who was sitting there in the audience, and I shrugged my shoulders and put my hands up like this, as if to say, what's a girl to do? And everybody just exploded with laughter. Finally, the young lady that had received her diploma ahead of me came back out and brought her diploma, which was really mine. They had mistakenly given her my diploma. So they gave me, we went through the whole process. They got the diploma. I had my hand out. I shook the guy's hand and I smiled for the camera. And I actually got a standing ovation. Afterwards, a lot of people said, Kat, we're so glad that it happened to you and not someone else. I had no idea how many times in my life that people would be saying something like that. I'm so glad that it was you, Kat, and not someone else. I actually teach how to develop a sense of humor in classes. And I teach people the skills or the steps of humor skills. And the very first one is to always see the absurdity of the situation that you're in. And I do that so often. I mean, I always look at something thinking, man, this is going to be a good story sometime. And it's a life skill. I have found that if you see the absurdity in your situation yourself, that others might not find it so horrific themselves. I have found that that humor has helped me throughout my entire life. And if there's any graduates that are watching this today, I would encourage you, if you develop any skill in life at all, to develop that humor skill, the ability to see the absurdity in a situation and know that there's almost nothing that you cannot persist, persevere, attain if you develop that skill. Won't you join me just for this week?